The United Emirates secretly dispatched 100,000 Colombian mercenaries to Yemen to fight in a country raging conflict, adding a violent new element in a complex proxy war. Proxy, that's a hell of a word that you throw in the middle of something like this. It is drawn to the United States and Iran. So now we got a Yemen war that now has two combatants that were enemies on a different front. Now they now fighting on another front in a different war than got supposedly shit to do with them. But we know our Arab brothers hate our new Jewish brothers, and the United States just let it have their nose in some extra shit because the Rothschilds and these other Marxist groups are, and the Rothschilds are funding both sides of the war. You know what it is. That's how they've been doing it since the beginning of time. It is the first combatants deployment for a foreign army that the Emirates have quietly built in the desert over the past 5 years, according to several people currently or formerly involved with the project. The program was once managed by the private companies connected to Eric Prince, the founder of Blackwater Worldwide. We're going to get into him a little bit later. But the people involved in the effort said that this role ended several years ago and that it has since been run by the Emirati military. The arrival in Yemen of 450 Latin American troops. There's always going to be some Latin American troops, always. Among them are also some Panamanian, Salvadoran, and Chilean soldiers, added to the chaotic stew of the government's armies, armed tribes, terrorist networks, and Yemen militaries, currently at war in the countries. Earlier than this year, a coalition of countries led by Saudi Arabia, including the United States, began a military campaign in Yemen against the Houthi rebels who have pushed the Yemen government out of the capital, Sana'a. It is also a glimpse into the future of war. Wealthy Arab nations, particularly Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the Emirates, have in recent years embraced a more aggressive military strategy throughout the Middle East, trying to rein in the chaos unleashed by the Arab revolutions that began in the 2010. We're gonna get into these Amorites, these new white Saudis, the ones who created this caste system. They're a different breed, a different type of motherfucker for real. Okay, the Middle East trying to in 2010, but these countries wade into the new conflict within Yemen, Syria, or Libya, with the militaries that are unused in sustained warfare and populations that are generally little interest in the military service. Eric Prince, the founder of the conventional private military firm Blackwater, and supporters of former President Donald Trump jumped in the COVID-19 business late last year with a deal to distribute an experimental vaccine should it be approved, according to three people familiar with the arrangement. A business record seen by Reuters, the COVID-19 vaccine known as UB16612 is being developed by a privately held U.S. firm called COVAX. The company has said the vaccine shows promising. COVAX is unrelated to the similar sounding but better known COVAX, a global vaccine distribution program backed by the World Health Organization. So it's a start. So you see why Donald Trump didn't want COVAX in America since he had his own brand, him and his homeboy. Since the start of the pandemic in 2020, the COVAX vaccine has attracted some big name backers, including the endorsements of entrepreneur Peter Diamond, Demandis, the co-founder of the company, The motivational speaker, Tony Robbins. They all know Tony Robbins is a weird ass. He the one also who came up with that weird ass and credit meat. You feel me? He always in some bullshit. Watch, bro. Old boy is a weird nigga. In March, the company raised a $1.3 billion in private placements, according to the U.S. Secretary's filing. Prince's involvement in the vaccine distribution, which has not been previously reported, sheds new light on the race to profits from the uncertainties of the pandemic. Vaccine supply deals have often been forged throughout direct government ties to drug makers, global health organizations, or diplomatic channels. Reuters couldn't determine how Prince first became associated with COVAX or whether he had been a broker in any vaccine supply deals. Prince did not respond to the question for this story. A source close to Prince said that Eric had been helping vaccine manufacturers set up distribution but declined to give details. Haiti is the only country in the Western Hemisphere without vaccines. Haiti, the poorest nation in the Western Hemisphere, has earned another grim distinction. It's the only one that hasn't COVID vaccinated a single resident against COVID-19. One of a handful of nations worldwide still awaiting vaccines. About 92 poor middle class income countries offer doses under the COVAX facility, but the the government initially declined AstraZeneca PLC shots, citing side effects and widespread fears in the population. Haiti did not reject the offer of vaccines from COVAX. Haiti's Ministry of Health and Government Director Laurie Adrian said in a telephone interview, all we asked was that they change the vaccine that they were providing us. Eric Dean Prince, this is who we talking about, the American businessman, former U.S. Navy SEAL officer, and the founder of a private military company, Blackwater USA, now called Academia. He served as Blackwater's CEO until 2009 and as its chairman until it sold to a group of investors in 2010. Prince heads the private equity firm Frontier Research Group and served as the chairman of Hong Kong's listed Frontier Service Groups in 2021. Michigan education at Hillside College. He got his BA. He's the founder of Blackwater Spouse. You see that have for children. Some of the Carvinius federal agencies, and you want to talk about depressing walkthrough HHS and HUD or Commerce, you name it. Leviathan realized, speaking of his internship, Prick said, I said a lot of things I didn't agree with homosexual groups being invited into the budget agreement and the Clear Air Act. Disenchanted Prince because of the back of the presidential candidate, Pat Buckingham. Prince had advocated for a leaner, more efficient military, suggested several ways to make the military more efficient without comprising security. His suggestion is greater accountability of costs using appropriate equipment for each job reduction. Blackwater. As happened to the death of kings, patriarchs, and heads of states, towns of Holland entered a period of intense mourning. A flag flew at the half staff. Every newspaper in the region ran front page stories eulogizing the prince, accompanied with the sidebars and a picture of timelines. More than 1,000 people gathered at the Christ Memorial Reformed Church to hear the evangelized leader James Dawson and Gary Buer, who referred to Edgar as his mentor, eulogized Prince. You'll remember Prince was adamant that the Family Research Council, new headquarters in Washington, D.C., should have a cross atop to remind the president, members, Supreme Court of Congress that this nation is under God's judgment. In the Grand Rapids Press, Lakeshore supplements the banner headlines of real Christian man, Reverend Brzezinski. I'm pretty sure that's the same dude that was Obama's backer. He was Obama's, what you call it, advisor. He gave him all his, what he should do next. So now we see the connection with that. Ed Prince was also gifted and developed individual who never took his eyes off of the goal of honoring Jesus Christ in his life. The pastor and friend of Prince for 2 decades, who married Edgar's widow Elsa 5 years later. At the time of the father's death, Eric Prince was a Navy SEAL serving as a string of deployments in Bosnia, Haiti, and the Middle East. Even still had happened to visit the father just a week before his death when Edgar made the signs of the cross on Edgar's daughter's forehead during the baptism. Eric remembered that his father had taught him never to say, I can. At the time of his death, Edgar had been married to Elsa for 41 years and had raised 3 daughters in addition to blah, 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 blah. You know what I'm saying? Is U.S. friendly foreign and military law enforcement, commercial and government organizations to prepare to go into harm's way. Prince claimed the 2006 mini special operations guys I know had the same thoughts about the need for private advanced training facilities, a few of them joining me when I formed Blackwater. I was in the unusual position after the sale of my family's business to self fund this endeavor, where Prince attempted to claim virtually sole credit for Blackwater's founding, spurred sharp reactions from some of the early Blackwater cohorts, according to the several sources involved with Blackwater's founding in the early history. The story of the company Genesis has never been in dispute until Blackwater rose into prominence about 2003 in Iraq occupation. That was when Eric Prince began peddling what appeared to be a bit of a revisionist history. The company's website boasted, our founder is a U.S. military Navy SEAL. He created Blackwater on the brief that both of the military and the law enforcement establishment would require additional capacity to train fully our brave men and women in and out of uniform to the standards required to keep the country secure. Prince had claimed that the Blackwater concept came to him during his time as a Navy SEAL teammate when they deployed in Haiti, in the Middle East, and Bosnia, and the Mediterranean. As I trained over the world, I realized how difficult it was for units to get cutting edge training they needed to ensure success. He said, I am in a letter home while I was deployed. I outlined the vision that is today Blackwater. Al Clark and other Blackwater executives highly disputed the version of Blackwater's history. Clark was the guy that came up with the idea of Blackwater training centers in the beginning and mentioned it to Eric Prince as former Blackwater executive as I was idea man and Eric Prince came up with the money. Eric gets credit for it because he's the owner, but it is actually Al's idea. Moreover, Prince claimed that he laid out the vision for today's Blackwater in 1996. Uh, dubious, uh, was, was dubious given how to provide a world-class venue to the U.S. friendly foreign military law enforcement. Poses saying, okay, with chaos and tremendous amounts of confusion, said the retired NYPD Emergency Service Unit Commander Al Baker. They are all young and all unknown. In the large place, there is a tremendous amount of noise. You don't know who the shooter is. We were trying to teach them the techniques of clearing hostile environments. There's a lot of bleeding there. It's not something that can wait. Blackwater's quick instruction of running. Are you ready? High convenience. The NTOA organization that trains 4,000 police officers annually to split into 16 annual conferences between Virginia Beach and Blackwater Moyacht compound. The event drew tactical teams and police officers from every state, Canada, Haiti, and Belgium, and England. By April 2000, the NTOA had put more than 1,000 officers through training. Are you ready? As police departments across the country more and more to started more and more to hear the name Blackwater. At the NTOA sorry, at the time, Prince commented that the event like Columbine are a remembered that vigilance is Prince of Liberty, and we need well-trained law enforcement and military. There is no shortage of evil in the world. On February 1st, 2000, with the name spreading across law enforcement communities, Blackwater took a huge leap forward as they landed in the first General Service Administration contact, creating a government approved list of service and good Blackwater could sell federal agencies and the prices they could officially charge. When the GSA schedule essentially open outline a list of prices used by Blackwater facilities to use Blackwater instructors for specialty training to use tactical training areas cost $1,250 per day and less than 20 for less than 20 shooters to use the urban training area. One of Are You Ready High was the component ran $1,200 a day, $1,250 a day for less than 30 people, $1,500 a day for more. Each range could be rented out to the government agency for $50 per person per day for a minimum of $500 minimum. That schedule also provided for $1,200 a day Blackwater's instructors to teach. Young Clinton said company developed a detailed proposal for Blackwater deploying in Sudan. Soon after, the Secretary of State Colin Powell visited Darfur in 2004. If you look at the presentation, it includes not only men with guns, they're offering helicopter gunship and fighter bombers that has the capacity to drop cluster bombs, satellite guided weapons, armored vehicles. Pelton said, "You say, wait a minute, that's a lot of offensive force. What does this have to do with peacekeeping?" In January 2006, 3 months before Covert Dark was dispatched to Jordan's Prince, spoke to yet another military conference attended by sources, U.S. military officials. One of the areas we could help in peacekeeping, perhaps in Haiti, having a 9,000 man peacekeeping brigade, they cost of $496 million a year. The garrison commander just committed suicide. It is in total disarray, Prince says. List for me. If you said really successful UN peacekeeping operations, I mean, see the movie Hotel Rwanda, I get sick and I say, why did we let this happen? We can do something about this next time without a huge U.S. footprint. We can build a multinational brigade of professionals vetted to the same kind of State Department standards that they use to guarding embassies. So we know when we're not employing war criminals and bad guys to train them, vet them, equip them, and now you have a multinational capacity to do something with. But a singer pointed out there's a simple no support for such an overall privatized operation at the UN. The official line from the spokesman and the non-starter. I find it telling to two separate high-level panels of the world leaders look to how they can fix peacekeeping, and neither one of them privatizing peacekeeping as a point of discussion, let alone supporting it. They also didn't talk about uh, Mauritanians coming in and running peacekeeping operations. But then again, I guess Mauritanians do not have the same lobbying effort and high promotional coverage stories about Blackwater in 2006, non conservative Weekly Standard. Like, as you can see, it's just like a private military. Like this guy right here. And then we're going to go back to the story of what happened in Haiti. The, the death of President Mose in Haiti. Death of President. Says Haiti's President Jovenel Moïse has been killed and his wife injured in an attack on their home at the national capital of Port-au-Prince. Unidentified gunmen stormed the property at 1 o'clock local time, 5 o'clock, I don't know what the fuck GMT is, PM. Claude Joseph said he has called the claim and declared the state of emergency nationwide. Mr. Moïse had led Haiti, one of the most poorest nations in the world, since 2017. But he faced widespread protests demanding his resignation. The nation's recent history has been plagued by coups, political instabilities, and widespread gang violence. UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson tweeted that he was saddened by the death of Mr. Moïse, calling it an inherent act uh, and appealing for calm. The U.S. President Joe Biden offered condolences to the people of Haiti for the horrific assassination. Fuck that nigga. First Lady Martin Mose later reportedly arrived by plane in Fort Lauderdale, South Florida for treatment. There's no official word on her condition. Mr. Joseph called the shooting of the president heinous, inhuman, and barbaric act, saying that the attackers were foreigners who spoke English and Spanish. Now, we were just talking about your man Eric Prince, right? In the Blackwater Society, and he's putting together these privatized militias, right? For what were we talking about? Kovacs with two X's. And these same where he's countries where he said he was doing it at in Latin America, North America, and over there in the Middle East and the Mediterranean. Haiti's official language are Creole and French. Some reporters spoke of a men dressed in black carrying high-powered weapons who may have been pretending to be U.S. drug enforcement operations, although no official. So how does somebody get U.S. DEA looking uniforms without? You can't get those on the internet. You can't just make that shit up without having seen it before. So these same people who are privatized military somehow got all this in DEA drug enforcement uniforms. All right. It says, although No officials have been given. Haiti's ambassador to the U.S., Bosidi Edmonds, said that there was no way that the U.S. Drug Enforcement agents carried out an attack. He believed it was the work of professional mercenaries. Mm-mm-mm. Addressing the nation, Mr. Joseph vowed that the killers would be brought to justice and said that security situation was under control. The state of emergency and the state of siege allowed for the banning and the gathering and the use of military for police roles, along with other extensions of executive power. Mr. Joseph said all measures have been taken to ensure continually that the democracy and the public will win. But the questions remain about how much control Mr. Joseph can exert. Haiti's constitution says ministers under the leadership of prime minister take control in the event of the president's vacancy until the election can be called. So before we even get too deep, what's his name again? Joseph what? It's a lethal combination of the streets of violence of the coronavirus infection, but ushered a dark period for Haiti after decades of instability and misfortune. The assassination of President Jovenel Moïse early Wednesday uh, injected further uncertainty into an already violent security of health situation. Aid groups have the killing of Haiti's emblazoned president at the home by a group of gunmen followed a month of escalating political instability and gang violence. Humanitarian organizations say bloodshed and hamstrung efforts to combat significant coronavirus outbreak in a country with weak health infrastructures and no access to coronavirus vaccine. Bullshit. Where's the part about the COVAX? This is in a week of the most devastating moments to Haiti's arduous history. There has been a bright spot. The week of Haiti's president's assassination, the country's first shipment of COVID-19 vaccines finally arrived. President Jovenel Moïse was shot a dozen times in his private residence on July 7th, despite the political chaos, social disruption, and the national state of siege that followed killing in Haiti. They now launched a mass COVID-19 immunization drive to help care workers and people over age 65. Haiti is one of the last countries in the world to make the vaccine available. The big question was now whether Haiti can overcome the political instability and the high levels of uh, distrust among the general public to actually get people vaccinated. But some health officials are optimistic it's a huge boost for us, says Dr. John William Pope, a recently arrived vaccine. He is a veteran physician who has been one of the front line of Haiti's HIV/AIDS crisis and a co-leader in the country's effort against COVID-19. Earlier in the year, Haiti shrugged off two offers doses for AstraZeneca from India and from COVAX, the global vaccine sharing program, because the numbers at the time were low in Haiti and COVID-19 wasn't high on the list of concerns for Haitian officials or even many residents. After cases started to surge in May, health officials in Port-au-Prince decided to forward with efforts to launch a mass immunization program. And in mid-July, the U.S. sent 500,000 doses of Moderna vaccine, COVAX, to the Caribbean nation. It's an excellent vaccine, says quote. We are very happy to have it. Of course you are. You got paid. Hospital sees roughly 2,000 patients a day. The kids have fevers to HIV patients, but it backs up against Village Dewey or the City of God, D. Dewey or the City of God, a lawless neighborhood between Port-au-Prince and the Bay. Over the past 2 years, Haiti has been hit with significant surges of gang violence. Criminal organizations have taken over the entire neighborhood of Port-au-Prince. After driving out the police, gang members now loot, extort, and kidnap, and at times even kill with impunity. Indian ways. Several men involved in the assassination of Haiti's president previously worked as U.S. law enforcement. What did we just talk about? According to the period brief on the matters as U.S. investigators grapple with an increasing number of Florida links to the alleged hit squad. Haitian President Jovenel Moïse was killed last Wednesday in an operation that Haiti authorities say involved at least 28 people. many of them Colombian mercenaries hired through Florida-based security company. Okay, CTU security. At least one of the men had been arrested connected to the assassination of Haitian authorities previously worked as an informant for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. The DEA said that the statement is in response to CNN. At times, one of the suspects in the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, confidential source to the DA, the DA said in a statement. Haitian police arrested suspects accused in orchestrating the president's assassination following assassination to the present DA. You know what I'm saying? We see it's all DA. Other suspects also had U.S. ties, including working as informants for the FBI. The People brief on the matter said the FBI said in the response to CNN reporting it doesn't have comments on informants except to say that it uses lawful sources to collect intelligence as part of investigation. Authority on Monday announced that the arrest of a suspect who they say orchestrated the assassination of Haitian-born Christian Emmanuel Sanin, 63, entered the country on a private jet in June. Police Chief Leon Charles said. So he on the CTU. Retarded. President Haiti Monday asserts that the key suspect relation to the assassination of Haitian President Jovenel Moïse, Christian Emmanuel Shannon. The National Police Chief said that the 60-year-old Haitian national who flew into Florida wanted to take over as Haiti's president was hiring mercenaries for the purpose. Moïse was killed by 26 people, the police say. So far, 18 Colombians, 3 Haitian Americans have been arrested. Moïse was shot dead early July 7, Port-au-Prince. A doctor that asserted Haitian Americans are Joseph Vincent, 55, and James Solange, one of them, have been an informant for the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration. Officials said the suspect at the time of the assassination wasn't a DEA informant, nor was he acting on the behalf of the DEA. And Solange described himself as a certified diplomatic agent and the former chief commander of bodyguards for the Canadian embassy in Haiti. Not many detailing emergencies regarding Vincent. Milchan is said to be the mastermind of the attack, while the White House viewed Haiti's interim PM request for troops to help secure airport and other infrastructure. The U.S. law enforcement is running through investigation to why the Haitian Americans may have been part of the group of the assassinated Mossad. White House Press Secretary Jim Psaki said Haiti's political leaders need to come together and plan a way to forward, commenting on if the request to send American troops has been rejected. Psaki said no. U.S. President Joe Biden said development in Haiti were more closely monitored. The Haitian people deserve peace and security, and Haiti's political leaders need to come together for the good of their country, Biden said. One of the Colombians involved in the attack was a retired soldier. The Haitian government is also investigating the head of the Mossad security, uh, Dimitri Harrell's trip to Colombia. Shannon arrived in Haiti in June, intending to arrest Mossad, but then the goal changed. The Colombian men who accompanied Shannon in the private jet were meant to provide security to Shannon. Shannon is being accused by Haiti's police of recruiting the team involved in the assassination via Florida-based Venezuela security company called CTU. Haitian authorities have yet presented evidence against Shannon. When Haitian police raided Shannon's home, they uncovered a charger ammunition, 2 cars, and license plates from Dominican Republic. And Washington Post reported the university professor who met with Shannon in June told the New York Times that he had spoken then of being sent by God to take over Haiti's president. Shannon is in June was making it known in his social circles of political intention. Shannon, who was certified to practice conventional and osteopathic medicines in 2013, filed for bankruptcy protection in Florida. Shannon is known to have been a critique of corruption in Haiti and reportedly has videos posted on YouTube channel. Pentagon said the review of its training database found that former troops participate in U.S. military training education programs. A small number of retired members of the Colombian military asserted that last week's connection to the assassination of Haiti's president were trained by the U.S. military. The Pentagon said Thursday. The statement in Washington Post Pentagon spoke on LT Colonel Ken Hoffman. A review and training database indicated that a small number of Colombian individuals detained a part of this investigation had participated in U.S. military training programs, education programs, while serving as active members of the Colombian military forces. The Pentagon has not yet said how many of the suspects received training from the U.S., but the Colombian officials said 13 out of 15 suspects served in their country's military. Many retired Colombian soldiers turned to mercenary work in other countries because of the frequently retired young and are given low pensions. Colonel John Marlunda, who was led as Association for Colombia's military members, said rates of retired military members can easily fall prey to better economic opportunities after retirement, becoming mercenaries around the world. The AFP reported Marulda said that each year 10,000 to 50,000 soldiers leave the Colombian military, usually due to the lack of opportunities for promotion, misconduct, or because they have reached 20 years of service. The recruitment of Colombian soldiers to go to other parts of the world as mercenaries is an issue has existed for a long time because there is no law that prohibits it. General Lucius Fernando Navarro, who leads Colombia's military forces, said last week there are a significant number of Colombian soldiers in Dubai, for example. The United Emirates sent hundreds of mercenaries from Colombia to fight in Yemen, who we say trained them. In 2011, the New York Times reported that a dozen of Colombia's mercenaries traveled to the UAE posing as construction workers to join the Emirati mercenary armies together by security contractors Blackwater, known as Academy. The mercenaries are often paid much more than earned serving in the military. While employed as soldiers in Colombia, they make around $375 per month. The mercenaries working in the Middle East, they can earn as much as $90 per day. Colombian troops are also valued more high than those from other countries because their experience with guerrilla warfare. In addition, the mercenary Haitian officials have arrested Christian Emmanuel Shannon as a doctor and a pastor who police believe mastermind behind the assassination by Shannon came with the intention to take over as president of the Republic of Haiti's police. Dictator General Leon Charles said on Sunday, adding that the men allegedly involved in the assassination called Shannon's first after it took place. Shannon, however, says he is innocent. Two other suspects of Walter Benamilla, who runs Florida's financial service company, and Antonio Interrago, who owns a private security company that hired Colombian mercenaries and brought them to Haiti. See, now that we forgot to use the right word because they are no longer that. As you can see, Boy had basically My bad, y'all. We just surfing away, man. We trying to get this shit right. Because if that's the deal, you know, if that's what he was, that's the money, not the past.